When we talk about manipulation, the first images that often come to mind are those of toxic romantic partners, controlling bosses, or two-faced friends, the kind of people we were warned about, the ones we're told to watch out for. But there's another kind of manipulation that's far more subtle, far more deeply woven into our lives, and often much harder to recognize and escape. It's the kind that doesn't come from strangers or outsiders, but from the very people who raised us, loved us, and told us they wanted the best for us, our own family. This kind of manipulation hides behind traditions, behind expectations, and behind the idea that family is always safe, always right, always pure in its intentions. It's difficult to spot because from the time we're young, we're taught to believe that family equals love, that our parents always know better, and that questioning them is not only disrespectful, it's wrong. We internalize the belief that our home is a place of unconditional safety, and that love within a family should never be doubted. But the truth is more complicated. Love can be conditional. It can be used as leverage. It can become a way to control instead of to care. And when love is confused with ownership, when it's used to mold you into someone else's image, to silence your voice, or to shape your life according to someone else's dreams, it stops being love in the way you need it. Sometimes the people who say, "I love you," the most are also the ones who slowly chip away at who you really are. They don't always mean harm, but their need for control, for tradition, or for emotional dependency can suffocate the very identity they helped create. And because we've been conditioned to protect the idea of family above all else, we often end up protecting their behavior while losing parts of ourselves in the process. 1. Not all love is healthy. The painful reality that many of us eventually have to confront is this: people often love in the way they were taught, not necessarily in the way we need to be loved. Love is learned, passed down like a pattern, and for some, that pattern is broken, distorted, or deeply flawed. Not everyone grows up witnessing healthy love. Not everyone was raised by people who knew how to express care in ways that are respectful, nurturing, or emotionally mature. And so, even when intentions are good, the love we receive can come wrapped in control, pressure, or guilt. Some parents, for example, believe they are loving their children by planning every step of their lives, choosing their path, making decisions for them, speaking for them, and shaping them into the image they've already imagined. They may say it's because they know better or because they don't want you to struggle, but in reality, this kind of love doesn't make room for who you truly are. It's a love that overrides your voice, your dreams, and your choices. These same parents may pour everything into their children: time, energy, sacrifices, and then turn those sacrifices into emotional debt. They remind you, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly, of everything they've done for you, using it as a tool to demand obedience, loyalty, and compliance. You're not allowed to question, to say no, or to choose a different path without being made to feel ungrateful or selfish. The message becomes clear. Love must be earned through obedience, and disagreement equals betrayal. But that isn't unconditional love. It's a form of manipulation. 2. Common manipulative phrases families use. Sometimes the manipulation within families isn't loud or violent. It's quiet, subtle, and hidden in everyday conversations that seem harmless at first, but carry powerful emotional weight. These are the phrases that don't look like weapons, but are often used to control, guilt, or limit you. Take, for example, the classic line, "I just want what's best for you." It sounds like love and care, but it's rarely followed by curiosity about what you believe is best for yourself. Instead, it often becomes a way to justify decisions being made for you, not with you. Then there's the loaded phrase, "Don't be selfish." Family comes first, It teaches you that setting boundaries, saying no, or choosing your own path is an act of betrayal. Your needs are dismissed, and your autonomy is seen as a threat to family unity. Or, think about how that makes your parents look. That's not a request for reflection. It's a demand to protect their image, even if it means hiding your truth, shrinking your identity, or living inauthentically. Emotional manipulation also shows up in lines like, "If you don't do this, I'll be heartbroken," where their disappointment is weaponized, and suddenly you're responsible for their emotional well-being. You carry the burden of their happiness, and your choices are no longer yours, they're negotiations. Then there's, "We raised you, you owe us," a deeply manipulative belief that turns love into a transaction. You're not treated as a person with your own journey, but as a lifelong project that they feel entitled to control in return for their effort. And perhaps one of the most damaging of all, you can't make it on your own. This phrase, often said under the guise of concern, plants quiet but lasting seeds of doubt. It makes you question your own abilities, your independence, and whether you're capable of surviving without their guidance, even when that guidance has become a cage. These phrases don't always come from malice, but their effect is real. Over time, they chip away at your confidence, confuse love with obligation, and convince you that freedom is dangerous. And the worst part, most people who say these things truly believe they're being loving. 3. Why you don't see it as manipulation. It's incredibly hard to recognize manipulation when it's coming from the people who raised you, especially when you've spent your whole life being taught to excuse it. You've been conditioned to believe that they're just doing it out of love, and that any pain you feel as a result must be unintentional or somehow your own fault. You repeat comforting phrases like, "They don't mean to hurt me," not because they always feel true, but because they help you make sense of a confusing, painful dynamic you're never allowed to name. You tell yourself, "That's just how family works," because questioning the very foundation of your upbringing feels terrifying, like pulling a thread that could unravel everything you've ever known. And perhaps most of all, you stay silent because you're afraid of what will happen if you speak. The fear of being seen as ungrateful, dramatic, or disrespectful keeps your thoughts locked inside. So instead of asking why you feel hurt or suffocated, instead of wondering whether love should come with guilt and control, you begin to internalize it all. You quiet your own voice. You bury your needs and convince yourself they're not important. You twist yourself into shapes that fit the expectations placed on you, even when those shapes feel unnatural or painful. And you become what everyone praises you for: being the good child, the obedient one, the one who never makes trouble. But no one talks about the cost of being a good child. No one sees how heavy it is to carry everyone's hopes while burying your own. You do everything right, everything that's asked of you, but inside, you start to feel hollow. You lose touch with who you are outside of what they want you to be. And slowly, quietly, you begin to realize that being a good child has made you a silent, anxious, and deeply unhappy adult. 4. The cost of that kind of love. The cost of growing up under emotional manipulation isn't always obvious on the surface, but it runs deep. It's not just about the arguments you avoid or the choices you don't make, it's about everything you slowly lose along the way. The cost is your identity, chipped away piece by piece, until you no longer recognize who you are outside of the roles you've been given. The cost is your dreams, which you've learned to silence because they don't fit into the version of life your family expects from you. The cost is your voice, the one you used to have before you were taught that speaking up meant causing problems. You begin to live in a constant state of hesitation, second-guessing every decision, every instinct, because you've been conditioned to believe that your judgment is flawed, that your desires are selfish, and that your needs come second or last. When you finally want something for yourself, you feel guilt instead of excitement. When you try to set boundaries, you feel like you're being cruel. You struggle to say no, even to people who hurt you, because you are never given permission to protect yourself. And without realizing it, you begin to carry a weight that was never yours, the shame, the guilt, the emotional burden of others, until you start to wonder if maybe you really are the problem. Because if the people who raised you, the ones who are supposed to love you unconditionally, can't fully accept you, then something must be wrong with you, right? That's the lie. That's the invisible wound. But the truth is, you're not the problem. You're not broken. You're not unworthy. You're simply someone trying to untangle yourself from a web of generational pain, patterns, and beliefs that were passed down to you without your consent. You are trying to become your true self in a world that trained you to forget who that is. And that's not rebellion. That's healing. That's courage. That's love, the kind you never got, but are now learning to give to yourself. 5. What you can do about it. The first step in breaking free from generational patterns and emotional manipulation is simply this: acknowledge it. Acknowledge that something wasn't right, that certain words, actions, and dynamics left you hurt, confused, or unseen. Acknowledge that just because your family didn't intend to harm you doesn't mean harm wasn't done. Intentions don't erase impact. And you're allowed to feel the pain, even if you know they were doing their best with what they had. You don't have to hate your family. You don't have to cut them off or hold on to bitterness. But you do need to be honest with yourself first about what their behavior has cost you, about how much of yourself you've had to bury in order to keep the peace. Because healing begins where denial ends. The next step is to set boundaries and to understand that boundaries are not acts of rebellion, but acts of self-respect. They're not walls to shut people out, but doors that allow relationships to be healthier, more balanced, and more respectful. You can still love your parents deeply and say no. You can still show care while choosing a different life than the one they imagined for you. Choosing yourself doesn't make you selfish, it makes you whole. And yes, people may not like your boundaries. They may guilt you, question you, or call you ungrateful. But your job isn't to make them comfortable, it's to make yourself safe. Then comes the long, often painful, but deeply transformative process of healing yourself. The guilt won't vanish overnight. The fear of disappointing them might still echo in your mind. The pressure to earn approval may linger. But little by little, as you learn to listen to your own voice, the one you silenced for years, you begin to reclaim the parts of yourself that were lost. You start valuing your thoughts, your dreams, your truth. You realize that your life doesn't need to be a performance. Tools like therapy, journaling, meditation, and community support aren't signs of weakness, they're acts of radical self-love. They're how you begin to repair what was broken without your permission. And finally, you're allowed to redefine what family means to you. Family doesn't have to be about bloodlines, duty, or keeping secrets for the sake of appearances. Real family is about safety. It's about being seen and heard without needing to earn love or walk on eggshells. Family can be the people you choose, the ones who cheer for your growth, respect your boundaries, and never ask you to shrink yourself just to make them feel okay. Family is anyone who allows you to be fully, freely, unapologetically yourself with no mask, no script, no shame. Final thoughts. Not every family is toxic. That's important to say. There are families that are nurturing, respectful, and built on a foundation of unconditional love. But not all families feel that way. And if being around your family, whether physically or emotionally, consistently makes you feel small, guilty, unseen, or unloved unless you conform to their expectations, then something needs to be questioned. Maybe it's not abuse in the way you've been taught to recognize. Maybe there are no loud fights or obvious cruelty. But emotional pain doesn't always scream, it often whispers. It shows up in the quiet moments when you feel like you can't be your full self. In the pressure to perform a version of you that keeps everyone else comfortable. In the subtle shaming that comes when you express a different belief, a new boundary, or a personal dream. It shows up when love feels conditional, when approval is a moving target, and when silence becomes the only way to feel safe. You don't have to burn every bridge to reclaim your sense of self. You don't have to stop loving your family or cut ties with every person who ever made you feel small. Healing isn't always about separation, it's about clarity. You can love them deeply and still acknowledge the harm. You can care for them and still choose not to carry their expectations on your back. You can maintain connection, but on your terms, not theirs. Because love that asks you to betray yourself isn't really love, it's control in disguise. And staying silent to protect the comfort of others is too high a price to pay for peace. You are allowed to say, "This doesn't work for me anymore." You have the right to say, "I choose peace over pressure. I choose truth over tradition. I choose myself," and that choice doesn't make you ungrateful. It doesn't make you selfish. It means you're finally listening to the voice you've had to quiet for so long. It means you're choosing to live your life from a place of alignment rather than obligation. Because the truth is, being born into a family is not a choice, it's a circumstance. But how you live, how you grow, how you show up in the world, that is your choice. And you deserve to live in a way that honors your truth, your values, and your well-being. You deserve relationships where you don't have to earn love or shrink to fit someone else's version of who you should be. You deserve to feel free, not fearful. Seen, not silenced. Whole, not half alive. This is your life. And you're allowed to make it yours, even if that means redefining what family means along the way.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.